Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Rebels in Flux. My name is Chris Netto. I am your host. I am joined by international model and cover story guy, Jarrod Hillman from Hillman AV, and I will go into why I just called you an international model and speaker. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
If you don't recognize his face right now, it's because you haven't picked up the Infocom training catalog where he is. I think he may be Mr. October. I don't know. It's
Vix's next top model.
Yeah, it's a Vix's next top model. That's it, man. You are there representing the Canadian vertical, because Canada, I guess, is its own vertical. Well, in the last episode, we went into the origin story of where Hillman came from. It's sort of like a superhero story. How you became Hillman and how Hillman AV became what Hillman AV is today, working its way through a vertical that, many here would wonder, how do you do that in the bar and hospitality side? So knowing that, some of the things that you brought up in the previous interview caught my attention. I want to get into that. Outside of more reasons why you're in the Infocom training catalog and all that sort of stuff. But one of the things you brought up was mentoring, right? You work for a small company. Essentially, it's a small company in Canada. Where there is obviously all the big players are playing across the space, but you are local to Saskatchewan, or Regina for that matter. Mentoring takes a big role at your company because of, you know what, I'm going to let you answer that. Why is mentoring an important piece to what Hillman AV's business stands for?
Yeah, I think we face the same challenges everyone does in bringing young new people into the industry. There's not too many people looking for that AV integrator degree into post-secondary so they can get an AV integration job.
Yeah.
And so the way that we've just hired is we've kind of just hired with the intention of starting from scratch. Mm-hmm. There's maybe only a few of us in our company that have, over a decade, like I said before, we're young. So even at my age of 34 now, I'm just going into my 10th year of being in the industry, owning a business for 8 of those 10.
And the average age of your company is like what, 20 something?
Yeah, 30, I think. Yeah. There's only 2 of us that have maybe close to a decade of experience in our company. And so I think that's why we've had such a close involvement with people like Avixa, people like the NSCA that provide those education platforms, and we've leaned a lot on them. Yeah. And so we take a lot of guys from scratch, and we've implemented our own training plan over the last couple of years, an actual regiment of what we do. Yeah. But other than that, everything's been trained on the job, almost more of an apprenticeship. So
that's a unique approach. Apprenticeship is something that's been battled back and forth. Going and getting a degree, for example, in AV they exist. It's not easy. Apprenticeship is the way to go. There is a trend that is coming, and I want to get your opinion on it. A trend that is coming, that is happening today. A lot of AV companies are not finding the AV people, and they're looking for people that are IT background. So they're coming out and they're hiring guys straight out of IT school who have some knowledge of, a better knowledge of IT than they would of AV, right?
Yeah.
Is that the type of people that you are bringing in as the building block, or are you looking for the traditional way that AV looked for before, the car audio installer, the former musician, the DJ, the live performer who is not performing live anymore and looking kind of for their steady job? What is your recruitment looking like nowadays in 2019, for example?
Yeah, on the operations side, it's easy. You need an operations manager. You find someone that is familiar with those operation processes. That's easy. Administrative, all that is quite straightforward. If we're specifically speaking to technicians, installers, mm-hmm. We've hired on plain work ethic. Probably one of the biggest things I look for is how familiar with tools and construction is this guy. Like you were saying, some people are reaching out to the IT industry and they're taking from there. And if they're going to use those guys as technicians, I'm going to offend a few people probably by saying this, but put a power tool in their hand and see how they handle that.
Yeah.
What's their familiarity on a construction site? Because we can teach I can teach someone signal flow, and I can teach someone, how to design and how to tap speakers, or how to design a 70-volt system, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're hiring young 20-year-olds that have never used a drill in their life, they've never used a screwdriver. I mean, you're just asking for more, in my opinion, you're just asking for more of a headache. And so we hire on work ethic and realistically tool familiarity, construction site familiarity. Most of our guys have construction backgrounds. We hired one guy just because he worked at a landscaping company for more than 3 years.
What? Really?
And yeah, well, no one gets paid well in landscaping. And so I thought, this guy worked in one of the most labor intensive jobs for 3 years, getting paid minimum.
Yeah.
He's a hard worker. And that's the things we're looking for.
That's an interesting place to go look for a pool of that. One of the things that has been hit or miss when it comes to apprenticeship versus degrees, and this is a debate that I've seen online, and I think we may have even brought this up at one point on a Sunday morning. I look at parallel industries, right? There are, and I don't mean that the industry I'm going to state is a direct parallel, but look at an industry like the tattoo industry, right? That have built their businesses based on apprenticeships, right? Yeah. You're an artist, you show your skills, you get you get a older artist to bring you on as apprentice. You apprentice for X amount of years to prove your craft, and then you've earned your wings and you become a tattooer. Now there is tattoo schools and people graduating with a certificate in tattooing and going right out and trying to get a job. The arguments there are very similar to ones that we would bring into the AV conversation, right? Practical knowledge, common sense, hard work, work ethic. What are you getting out of a school that, that an apprenticeship couldn't deliver, right? Very, very bizarre and kind of a weird take on it, but they're having the same issues that AV does, because you're starting to get IT people that don't have IT, and you want to IT people that don't have AV, and then there's that learning curve when you get in, and that learning curve can be rough, because like you're out there looking for hands-on hard workers. Degrees doesn't bring the work ethic conversation in, unless you're a doctor or get a higher degree where that's
no. And you're right. Like all the degree is going to teach is theory. It's teaching you theory. It's teaching you, like I said, things like signal flow. It's teaching you connectivity and stuff like that. And it's that feel, especially, and again, we're speaking very specific to integration technicians. Yeah. But when you look at trades, and I firmly believe that we are a borderline trade when it comes to integration technicians, and we should model that. There's not too many plumbers that went to school and got a diploma after 2 years in plumbing, and now they're plumbers.
Yeah.
And it's because you need that hands-on experience. And so going back to your question of what would you get out of a degree that you wouldn't get in an apprenticeship? Well, nothing. But reverse that question, and what would you get out of an apprenticeship that you wouldn't get in a degree? Tons. Field experience, confidence, familiarity, confidence, again, I just have to speak to, but I'm a true believer that no one should be graduating. I mean, just trying to carefully say this. I just don't believe AV as an integration technician, and that's all I'm speaking to is on the installation side. I don't think it has any place in post-secondary. And you look at the amount of industry associations that offer, like Avixa and their AV essentials, something like that. I mean, you
can pick that up.
The industry offers a ton of training from manufacturers to the associations. So it's that field training that they need.
See, not only are you out there looking for future technicians and bringing them in as an apprenticeship, one thing that I do want to bring up is you're on an island. Not necessarily on an island, but you're kind of out there in the middle of nowhere, right, where you don't have a large pool to pick from. So you're out there looking for the work ethic. And it's completely understandable the approach that you're taking when the resources may not be there. You also have a unique issue in the sense that because of where you're located, you're not exactly the most happening spot for an AV roadshow, or
No.
Bix is never going to go up there and do an Infocom Regina. How do you deal with something like that, where seeing product means you have to get on a plane and go somewhere? It's a luxury that I have here, and I'll be honest with you, now in speaking to you, it is a luxury. There are places in Midwest America that can't see product as well. They have to fly to it, so it's understandable. There's people that are going to be watching this going, I get the story. How do you work around something like that?
We go to where the learning is. Myself and, take, for example, we spend a lot in training. Myself and one of our engineers, we flew down to Denver for a 3-day Avixa design course, because that's where it was. And the flight's not terrible. Over half of our company is CTS certified. And so we spend the money on the training. We spend the money on the prep classes. We last year, I think, was it last year that we were in Vegas? I think we had 8 staff at the time. Well, 7 of us went to Infocom, that we paid for. And so the other thing to speak to is, you're right, because we have, what I'll call slim pickings here. We are big on, every company's big on culture, but we're really big on passion. And I'm the first one to say, it's funny because what I've learned about building Hillman AV is that I probably just have a really good work ethic. I'm really determined, and I like helping people, and I just happen to be in AV. So for me, what I've learned about myself is it doesn't matter where I would have ended up. I think I would be doing the same thing. I just would be in plumbing. I would be in marketing. And so I kind of share that same belief, because we're not, people aren't banging on our door going, man, I love the audiovisual industry so much, I just got to work for you guys. But what we are doing is we're bringing in people and saying, hey, you know what? We're a great group of people. We get to do some really fun and exciting things, and we stick together. And so if we just kind of push that passion, that they're just passionate about what we do, and how we do it. And we just all happen to be doing audiovisual. So awesome.
See, you struck on the nerve there, which is, a lot of people will, ho hum the idea that, oh my God, training, the next closest train, there is no training around me, blah, blah, blah. But taking the initiative and putting people on a plane and saying, no, you're getting trained, investing in your employees, that goes a long way to employee retention, and to, obviously it's employee development, but employee retention, you're gonna possibly create the next engineer. As that person is going through the journeying through his career from technician up, you may have found your next engineer, because they'll start taking to it, especially if you're investing in it, right? Yeah. And that I'm assuming is part of the fabric that weaves the culture at Hillman.
Yeah, if you were to ask me, our retention rate is extremely high. I mean, our operations manager, I think, just crossed 4 years, and he started out as a technician. Our project manager, he's about the same time. He started out as a technician. I have a lead technician that's been with me for, I think he's been 3 or 4 years as well. Started from scratch, and he's one of our best technicians. The manager of our engineering department, he started with me about 5 years ago, and and he's the other one with experience from another integrator. But our second programmer, actually, he started out as a technician, and we moved him into programming just last year. So even as small as we are, we don't want to waste our investments. And so we do move people around where we see fit and where their strengths are. And it's been really good that way. So
awesome. That sounds great. And it's a great way to go. We've talked a lot about your technicians and about the operations team. Mm-hmm. What makes your sales side special or different? And I'll give you the context. Does your sales team outnumber your business developers? And the context I'm speaking is, salespeople are the hunters, business developers are your farmers. Are you that? Do you take on that role as a person, or is it or have you laid out the plan for something like that?
Yeah. So being a company, like our company is 11 people.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're small. And so,
Multiple roles.
That's right. So there's just myself and Saad, who you've met,
Yes.
who's an account manager, and his largest role has kind of been taking over accounts that I've been working with for the past few years, and taking those on, and then he pretty much takes any lead or anything that comes our way. Big vision. I'm probably a little bit more in charge of the big vision, and so I'm the one that lays. I work a lot more with the consultant side, the architects. Yeah, Saad's a little bit more on the end user side, but no, there's really only two of us. I probably spend the most time developing the business, and Saad on the actual, sales.
Yeah, so you do have that, one's out there, one is basically cultivated. All right. Well, we got a good look into, again, what it is that you do and what Hillman does. You're also involved in the Content Learning Committee. Explain to me a little bit about that. And that is a volunteer job that you do with Avixa.
Yeah. So funny story, about 2 Infocoms ago, I wandered into a meeting room and there was a group meeting, and I can't even remember who it was now, but someone had said, well, do you just want to sit in here while we're just having a discussion, And it turned out to be the Content Learning Committee. And so I kind of became just like an inaugural member. And then now I'm just on that committee, and it's been really good. It gives me a lot of chances to see, what courses are coming down the pipe, what sessions are being submitted for presentation for Infocom. That's probably what we spend a majority of our time on, is reviewing those session submissions. I do a little bit of work with the young AV professionals as well. I don't seem to find the same amount of time available, but no, it's been good. I find actually being involved in the industry has probably taken me a lot further than a lot of other things I've done.
Awesome. Well, let's get to the personal questions, because that's what everybody, well, at least that's what I like to talk about. All right. And these are usually the fun ones, and one will lead to the next. So let's start off with, if you were not an AV, what would you be doing for a living?
Oof. Well, I would be in a trade. For sure I would be. I'm just that type of person. I would probably be either in construction or electrical, I'm sure.
That's where so you would still be crawling through sheetrock somehow, or breaking sheetrock and dirty and going home with a tool bag.
Well, and that's the funny thing. And if I had the same progression that I did at Hillman, maybe I would be a project manager, or I'd be a foreman. I would be in charge. By now, right. I'd be in charge.
So no matter what, you would be in charge. Check. Get that off the list there. Yeah. All right. Next question, which actually is over to the side here. Favorite place where you've had poutine? So
it's not Montreal. So those guys can take their poutine and go. There is a place here in Regina. It's actually called Coney Island.
Really?
Yeah. And they have, they have over a dozen different styles of poutine. And man,
what's on it? You got to explain. I know that is disco fries around here, but explain to me.
Yeah. So, you could get something like a Mexican poutine, and it would be your standard like gravy and cheese curd and fry, and then there'd be salsa and cheese and like a cheddar or like a nacho cheese, all your green onions, and maybe some Tostito chips or something in there.
Wow. So that is like, there's Canadians that are listening to this going, oh my God, they're ruining our poutine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure there is. Yeah. But there are places now, like especially the sports bar that we do a lot of work for, they have a dessert poutine, and I think it's I don't want to shame it, but it's really good, but I don't know what's on it, but it's a dessert poutine. So
I learn something new every time I do these shows, man. I never thought that dessert poutine existed up until now. Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. That is interesting. All right. Well, you are obviously the president of a company that is X amount of people. How do you get away? What is your getaway? Whether it's a weekend, whether it's I'm not coming in tomorrow, do you have that luxury? Where do you unplug?
I'm on that day, actually. That's funny because my wife is a teacher, and so she's off on the summers. And so it is hard to unplug. It's hard to not communicate back to clients on days that you've, taken off and stuff. And so I find my biggest recharge is, it's going to seem silly, but we have a really nice location where our house is, and we have a small, patio off the back, and most of me and myself and my family will just sit out there for just the evening when it's really nice out. And that seems to be a really good spot for me to kind of just clear my head. I would say golf when I get to it. Although depending on how my rounds go, it's a terrible day off, or it's a really good day off depending on how I'm doing that day. So well, yeah, no, I anytime I have with the family, and then golf, I would say are probably the two biggest ones.
That's great. I have a confession to make. I actually swung my first golf club, first time ever in my life, outside of like a pitch and putt or a mini golf type setup. We went to Top Golf, so it wasn't even on a golf course because that would just not be my style, I guess. But we went to a Top Golf, and I actually swung a golf club for the first time. My shoulder was not. I'm not used to that. I'm like, oh, am I having a heart attack? Why is my arm like kind of weird? Right. And it turns out it was, I'm sitting there thinking it's like baseball. I'm trying to swing for the fences, doing 150-yard drives, trying to figure out how can I hit that back net? Like, I'm not built for golf, dude.
Yeah.
I'm short, compact, kind of stubby. I'm just not. The golf clubs are kind of weird sizes. I'm just not. I'm not a golf guy. I'm not a golf guy, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm not a ski guy either. I hate heights, and I hate not having control. And going down the side of a mountain at 100 miles an hour is not my typical thing of fun, with trees possibly coming up. So, dude, I like life. So
you know what I find about golf? I only started golfing maybe 2 years ago. And the funny thing I like about golf, and I would suggest every entrepreneur should golf. And the reason being is because when you get out there and you have one bad swing after the next, and you have to mentally overcome that, it is a good training for you to get to being an entrepreneur and starting and running a business, because you will be hammered challenge after challenge after challenge. And so you have to just mentally overcome each one, right? That's what I related to. I might be reaching, but that's what I do.
Hey man, I lack of patience would not allow me to sit there and go look for a ball in the middle of the weeds.
Yep.
If I'm down in Florida, alligators, no thanks. I'm not down with that either. We don't have that. I recently did a podcast where I brought up a funny animal story. Alligators is not something that I want to come across. We don't have them in New Jersey. I'm not moving to Florida. So it's how I kind of avoid them. So last question. It's kind of an easy one, and I probably have an idea where this is going to go. What was the last TV show that you binged? Or do you binge watch?
No, I do because when I have time to watch TV, I try and get done what I can. The last one that I binged, though, you know what it was? And it's funny because it was a Canadian show.
I knew it.
And it's and I recommend it because it's hilarious. It's called Schitt's Creek.
Okay.
It stars Eugene Levy and his son Dan Levy. If you know Eugene Levy at least?
Absolutely. American Pie fame.
American, that's right.
That's one of the movies that we know him from, but yeah.
Yeah, so actually it's him and Catherine O'Hare, another Canadian, and then actually Eugene's son Dan and his daughter. I can't remember her name, but there's three of them on there, and the show is just hilarious. It's about a very high-end, pretentious family, which is Eugene Levy, that end up going bankrupt, and they end up having to relocate to this little town that's called Schitt's Creek. And,
I'm assuming the spelling has something to do with it. Is it like SCHLITZ or something like?
Yeah, SCHITT. Yeah. And so they end up in this like Bodunk town, and yeah, it's good. It's good Canadian humor.
That's awesome, and nothing like good Canadian humor. Like I said, prior to the show starting, I asked Jarrod, I said, "Are you familiar with You Can't Do That on Television?" He said no. So I quickly dated myself, shut up, and went to that conversation, because that would bring up a whole nother story about Alanis Morissette and who appeared on that sort of stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
Jarrod, thank you so much for joining us again, giving us an insight of how company such as yours grew and developed and became what it is, adding the importance of apprenticeship versus the college degree. I think that's a great conversation, and having a real life experience, real life story of how that is impacting your business and how you guys are working through that and how you guys seek out training as opposed to sit back, relax, and wait for it to come to you. I think that's great. I think it's aggressive, though you're a laid back guy. Aggressive of you to go out there and do that and pursue the guys with the hard work ethic, with the blue collar mindset, to go out and work hard and develop those guys who are not afraid to get their hands dirty. I think that's commendable on your part. And I think that's a great story for many of the AV people that could be watching this, could be listening to possibly emulate, man. So now how can people get a hold of you and Hillman AV?
Yeah, so you'll find us online there at www.hillmanav.com. And I'm on Twitter, of course. You can either find me sneaking into the AV and the AV conversations or at AV Printer.
Awesome, man. My name's Chris Neto. I am the host. You can find me on Twitter right below here on that lower third that will come out at Chris_Neto. You can find the sponsor of the show, Starin.biz, at Starin.biz. They're also on Twitter at Starin_MKG. Thank you so much for listening. This has been another great episode. Thank you, Jarrod, for coming by and representing the Great White North in our 51st state.
Yeah.
I had to, at some point, drop it. Thank you so much for hanging out, man. I appreciate it. I got a lot of great conversation from this, and appreciate you giving us a point of view that maybe some of us here on this side of I guess this side of the continent, because we're essentially on the same continent, have not heard before. So thank you. Once again, this is Rebels in Flux. My name's Chris Neto. Don't forget to stop by our page, Starin.biz. That's Jarrod. I'm Chris. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Rebels in Flux.